You're standing at the edge of something monumental, not because you've graduated, not because you've passed exams, but because now the illusion of childhood has burned away. And what remains is you standing in front of the rest of your life with one burning question staring you in the face. What are you going to do with your time? Because here's something no one wants to say too loudly: you're not young for long. Every moment you waste thinking that your future will somehow work out is a moment you've traded permanently for something utterly useless. Your time is your life, and if you're squandering your time scrolling, numbing yourself, pretending you don't know what you want to do, because it's easier than risking failure, then you're betraying yourself minute by minute. When I was a young man, I saw myself clearly for the first time one night, aimless, lazy, and arrogant enough to believe that talent alone would carry me through. I was reading Dostoevsky in a little apartment in Montreal, surrounded by books and despair, and I realized if I didn't aim at something, I would become the very thing I feared. A bitter, resentful, mediocre version of myself, one who could have, but didn't. And that shook me. So I'll tell you what I tell my students: pick something, not anything. Pick the highest possible good you can imagine. Not something selfish, not something easy, not something designed to please your parents or your peers, but something you, in your soul, know would be worthwhile. And then go after it like your life depends on it. Because it does. You want meaning? You won't find it in hedonism. You won't find it in comfort. You certainly won't find it in nihilism. You find meaning where responsibility is taken voluntarily, where you shoulder a burden, carry it uphill, and say, "This matters. I will do this, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary." You think you're not enough? Wrong. You don't yet know how much potential rests inside you, waiting to be called forth by discipline, sacrifice, and a vision that's powerful enough to reorganize your life. You have no idea what you could be if you truly committed, but you could find out, and that should terrify and inspire you at the same time. So stop wasting time. Stop lying to yourself. Clean your room, yes, but also clean up your mind, your habits, your daily rituals. Cut the cynicism. You're not too late, and it's not too hard. But the cost of inaction is everything. Everything you could have been, but won't become if you let yourself drift. This life will demand everything from you, and it should. Because the reward isn't just success or recognition. The reward is becoming someone you can be proud of. Someone your future self would thank. Someone who stood at the edge of the unknown, looked into the chaos, and stepped forward anyway. That's your task. That's your call. And you already know it. So go. Become. Start now. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Now, while you still can. Time is not infinite, and you're trading your life for what you do each day. People often talk about killing time like it's an idle phrase, like it's nothing. But let me tell you something that should shake you. You're not killing time. Time is killing you. Every second that passes, a second of your life gone, irretrievable, dissolved into the past, and you don't get a refund. That's the brutal truth no one wants to confront. They want to believe they're immortal for now, but you're not. You're not even guaranteed tomorrow. When you wake up in the morning, what you do that day matters. It's not neutral. It's either pushing you forward or pulling you backward. There's no standing still, because time keeps moving whether you choose to or not, and if you're standing still, you're falling behind. Every hour you spend doing something pointless, meaningless, disconnected from your highest potential, you're making a trade. You're trading your life for that thing. And what are most people trading it for? Junk food. Cheap dopamine, and his own stagnation. Look, I'm not saying don't rest. I'm not saying don't take a break, but rest has to be earned. And you better make damn sure that what you're resting from is worthwhile effort. Because otherwise, you're just wasting time twice once by avoiding the work, and again, by pretending your rest is meaningful. There's a famous quote, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. That's not just poetic, that's surgical truths. So ask yourself and be honest. What are you doing with your time? If someone followed you around with a camera for 30 days and made a documentary about your habits, would you be proud of that person or would you be ashamed? Every moment is a brick, and you're building something, a cathedral or a ruin, and the quality of your life, your future, will be made from those bricks. So start treating your time like the sacred, limited resource it is. You don't have time to waste. Not now. Not ever. What are you doing with your days? And is it worth your life? Face chaos voluntarily or be consumed by it. Life is chaos. That's not an opinion, that's a foundational truth. The world is far more complex than you are. And at every moment, it threatens to shake apart your fragile sense of control. And here's what most people never fully grasp. You don't get to avoid the chaos. You either face it voluntarily or you let it swallow you. You can pretend things are fine. You can ignore the tension rising in your gut, the anxiety that clouds your thoughts, the sense that something isn't right. You can distract yourself with noise and novelty, but chaos doesn't care if you acknowledge it. It doesn't vanish because you turn your back. It just grows in the shadows, gaining strength until one day it crashes through your carefully constructed life and rips it apart. That's what happens when you leave things unattended, your bad habits, your relationships, your fears, your failures, left alone. They accumulate interest, and the bill always comes due. You've seen it before, maybe in someone close to you. A person who refuses to confront their addiction, or the decay of their ambition, or the pain they've buried, and suddenly they find themselves in free fall, and no one can pull them out. Because they waited too long, because they pretended there was no problem, or that it would solve itself. And it never does. When I talk about chaos, I'm not talking about dragons and fairy tales, though myths are brilliant at telling the truth metaphorically. I'm talking about everything unknown, unpredictable, and potentially destructive in your life. The uncertainty in your career, the emotional patterns you inherited that you haven't sorted out, the past mistakes you never made peace with, the responsibilities you keep deferring. That's chaos, and it waits patiently for the moment your armor cracks. So what's the alternative? You turn and face it willingly. You walk into the unknown. You go to the place in yourself that scares you, that humiliates you, that reveals you, and you clean it up. You structure the chaos. You take something raw and dangerous, and you turn it into something meaningful, something ordered. And you don't do it once. You do it every day. The ancient Egyptians had the god Horus. He was the falcon-eyed being who could see the hidden. Idly about the UNs. It is the Losden, Helium, and Verd in the Ord, the terrifying, the painful. And his great enemy was chaos in the form of Set. And it was only by opening his eyes wide, even to the horror, that Horus could defeat the threat and bring order to the kingdom. That's your task. Look where you least want to look. Go where you least want to go. Because that's where the dragon lives, and behind the dragon is the gold. When you confront chaos voluntarily, something incredible happens. You grow. You get stronger. You become the kind of person who can bear more weight, handle more complexity, and act with more integrity. And that's not just good for you, it's good for everyone around you. Your courage becomes a foundation that others can stand on. But don't make the mistake of thinking you can wait until you're ready. You'll never be fully ready. You start by acting anyway. You pick up one thing in your life that's disordered, even if it's just your schedule, your workspace, or your mindset, and you tame it. Then you pick up the next. And slowly, you move from being a passive observer of your life to an active architect of it. The choice is simple, but it's not easy. Face chaos or be broken by it. There is no third option. Structure your life like you mean something. You can tell a lot about a person by how they live when no one's watching, by how they speak to themselves in silence, by the way their room looks, the way their day is laid out, the way they handle small, ordinary tasks. That's not trivial. That is the person. And the truth is, your life already has a structure, whether you're conscious of it or not. The only question is it a structure you've... Think of it like this. You're standing in the middle of a dense forest. You can walk in any direction, but if you don't pick a distant point on the horizon, a guiding star, something above you and beyond you, then you'll wander in circles. Your energy will disperse. Your time will vanish. But if you aim at the peak, the farthest mountain, the place where heaven touches the earth, then every step you take has orientation. Even when you fall, even when the path twists, you know where you're going. What does that look like practically? It means asking yourself the hardest questions. What kind of person do I want to become? What do I want my life to stand for? What would justify the suffering that is inevitably part of existence? These are not questions for the faint of heart. They require courage, but in answering them honestly, you begin to construct a life that's worth the cost. Because life does cost something. Every day asks something from you, and one day it will ask everything. So you better be building towards something that's worthy of that price. If you choose a goal based only on what you think will make you feel good in the short term, you'll pay for it with long-term regret. But if you aim at the highest possible good truth, responsibility, love, beauty, sacrifice, excellence, then the struggle itself begins to shape you into someone formidable, someone noble. Don't think you're too broken to aim high. You're not. Don't think you're too late. You're not. Wherever you are, you begin from there. You say, what's the best I can imagine? Then you say, now, what would it take to move in that direction, step by step, today? And here's what happens almost magically. Meaning appears. Because meaning doesn't come from comfort. It comes from struggle toward a goal you believe is worth the pain. Meaning is what holds you up when things fall apart. It's what gets you out of bed when nothing else does. It's the voice in the storm that says, keep going. This matters. So don't waste your aim on the trivial. Don't aim at power or status or money for their own sake. Aim higher. Aim at the good. Aim so high it scares you. Because if your goal doesn't humble you, it's not worthy of your life. You're more than you think you are. Act like it. Most people live like ghosts of who they could be, moving through the days with a dim sense of potential, haunted by the person they might have become if only they'd tried a little harder, reached a little further, believed a little more. They stay small not because they are small, but because they've convinced themselves that they are. And that lie, repeated silently over years, becomes a prison. The truth. But here's the truth. Backed by decades of clinical psychology and as old as every myth that ever mattered, you are more than you think you are. Not metaphorically, literally, there is more capacity for strength, insight, resilience, creativity, love, and greatness in you than you have dared to measure. The reason you don't see it is because you haven't demanded it of yourself. Yet. People say things like, I just don't have it in me. Well, how would you know? When was the last time you gave everything you had? When was the last time you pushed yourself to the point of transformation, not breakdown, but breakthrough? You haven't even seen your limit because you've never let yourself get close. You've played safe. You've lived in the shallows. And life is found in the depths. There's a reason the hero's journey always begins with a call to adventure. That's not just a story, that's a map of human potential. You're called out of your comfort zone into the unknown to confront the dragon, which is just a symbol for fear, failure, limitation. And what's at the heart of that myth? That by facing the thing you most fear, you become something greater. You integrate the parts of yourself you've ignored. You realize you were never weak, you were simply untested. You think you're just a student, just someone trying to figure things out. But that's not the whole truth. You are the descendant of survivors of people who faced hardship and loss and chaos and endured. You carry that same spirit, the same machinery, the same fire, and yet you waste it, you smother it under apathy and distraction. Why? Because becoming who you could be requires sacrifice. It requires that you stop being who you are. And that's terrifying. But transformation always costs something: your comfort, your excuses, your illusions. I've seen it over and over again in clients, in students, in people who thought they were broken beyond repair. They walked in with slumped shoulders, empty eyes, and voices that barely rose above a whisper. But when we started digging through trauma, through guilt, through the rubble of their past, there was something alive in there. Fierce, beautiful, capable. It just needed to be called forth. And once it was, they became unrecognizable, not because